Julie fluid on. That's kind of cheating, but you make this campfire and you put it in, and then you have people sitting around it, and it can be very productive, proactive, good. You can roast marshmallows and weenies over it and everything. It's really good. A lot of good things can come from a fire. It can keep you warm. You can warm your front side in the cold. You know, when it's wintertime, warm your front side, turn around, warm your back side, all that stuff. That's how it's done. You walk away smelling like really nice campfire smoke. It's awesome. It's great. However, when that fire gets out of that fire pit, the yard gets on fire, things are destroyed, and Smokey the Bear is not happy. Only you can prevent forest fires. Well, Smokey's going to be really disappointed here, right? When it gets out of its proper place. You think about the channel of the Mississippi River. Think about the Mississippi River, how much goods and commerce are traded back and forth and are taken up the Mississippi River, down the Mississippi River, down to New Orleans. How productive and proactive and financially dependent to an extent that we are on the Mississippi River. When the river runs and stays in its channel, it's a very mighty, powerful force that is proactive and channeled very well. But if it gets out of its channels, it starts flooding, it destroys crops, farmers can't work, farmers will actually lose money, ag pilots can't fly, towns are destroyed, people actually drown because of this. There's all kinds of chaos and havoc. And so when we talk about this topic of the habit of lust, understandably, the desire for sex has its proper place, right? But when we get it out of its proper place, that's when it becomes very dangerous and actually burdensome for us. And so I want to start that off with that. Now, I want to give a disclaimer here, and I may get a little serious and my tone may change, so just be ready. I need to make a disclaimer before we move forward. If you're not aware, in our present context, sex often carries with it a very deep level of shame. It's often very taboo in the church. We're afraid to talk about it. So I may say some things that you're like, whoa, I can't believe he just said that with a microphone in the church. But we're going to move forward. In this present context, it often is there's a deep level of shame attached to it. It's often very taboo. It's something people already feel very guilty from and weighed down from. And so I want to make it very, very clear this morning, beloved. This will be a safe place. In fact, this class is not set up to be discussion-based. I don't have a question I'm going to ask on the screen this morning. You can thank me later for it. I take donations too, but this will be a safe place. What do I mean by that? I'm going to present statistics here in a few moments that reveal an alarming percentage of people who deal with pornography. This can also, I think it also includes people in the church who are trying to follow Jesus, and I just want to make it very clear that this is going to be a safe place. And what I mean by that is there will be no comments made such as, well, if they were really Christians, then they wouldn't be struggling with that. There's not going to be a comment made such as, well, if they just prayed more, they wouldn't have that problem. Or, you might even be thinking, especially if you're of the older generation, you didn't grow up with smartphones and a device in every room of the house. Well, why can't they just put the phone down? There's not going to be any comments made about that. And I can guarantee you, if you start to make that kind of a comment, you will be shut down. I have the microphone. Things are much different today than they were in the 1950s. Back then, you had to go to the convenience store or whatever store you went to, and you had to go find the Playboy magazine. You had to roll it up and make sure no one saw you, and you kind of slid it at the counter, and you bought it, exchanged the goods, and slid it in the bag and went and hid it in your bedroom somewhere. You had to go looking for it back then, but today, you and I have access to pornography in our pocket, and it is looking for you. It's looking for you, and it's looking for our teens, and it's looking for all of us to at some point be distracted and eventually distort this good gift of God. Studies have shown that when you watch pornography for a while, it begins to actually rewire the neurological pathways in your brain, just like any other addiction does. In fact, it can cause you to get turned on when you turn your computer on. Those that are dealing with this, especially in the church, need to be aware that this is not just a moral problem and it's not just a sin problem. This is a brain problem too. And my plea with you this morning is for us to talk about this in a way that does not distort the reality of the problem. We're not going to run away from the reality of the consequences of these issues and these struggles. At the same time, we're going to handle this with compassion instead of judgment. And so, like I said before, if you start to make a judgmental comment, I will shut you down because I have the microphone, and I can, in a loving, meaningful way. If you're someone who's silently struggling with this, I hope you know that we're here for you. And if you need to talk to anybody about this, you can come see me privately. You can come see one of our elders or deacons. I know they'll be more than willing to help you or talk to you about this and at least let you just have a safe place to talk about this and deal with it in a God-honoring way. All right, disclaimer's over. Now we're moving forward. Let's look at the dangers and the realities of sexual addiction and pornography. So I got this chart from thefreedomfight.org. They are a really good resource on sexual addiction and a good resource on just the effects of pornography in our modern day today. So you look at this chart, and you'll look up there and you'll see there are things listed there like food, nicotine, there's sex and porn, there's cocaine, and there's amphetamine. Okay, you know every time that you eat or go to the bathroom, there's a dopamine level in your brain that's released so that you are motivated to go back to it again and do it again. So that's just kind of how you continue with life. So every time you eat a good steak or you eat a good piece of food, there's dopamine released in your brain. That's to help us and reinforce that behavior. We need to eat and keep eating. And that's a healthy thing to do, but when we put food out of its proper place and all that, that's a problem. So, okay, then the next one up is nicotine. Think about cigarettes, think about all the different things with nicotine in them. I know there was one morning that I was still in the Meaning of the Miracles series, I think, and we talked about leaving some things behind. And many of you I'm glad you felt safe to share this in this audience, but many of you said that you had struggled or had at one point tried to quit cigarettes. And I was fairly impressed with how many of people have done that and then actually have walked away from them. You think about how hard it was for you to maybe quit smoking cigarettes, right? Well, it is increasingly, significantly more challenging for people with a legitimate pornography addiction. It is significantly more challenging for someone to get off of that than it is for them to get off cigarettes. Just to give you a little bit of perspective there. And the next thing that's listed is cocaine. And I know we make jokes about, I don't want to run into a meth head or something or whatever. But think about that. In between cigarettes and cocaine is a pornography addiction. That amount of dopamine that is going off in your brain whenever that is taking place and it's rewiring the neurological pathways in your brain, it is challenging to get off of. It's that serious. And it's a hijacking of the good gift that God gave us. Now, I want to run through some statistics as we move forward. How many people in the U.S. watch pornography? This comes from the source of Covenant Eyes. You may have seen them. They're a screen accountability app or software that helps you kind of monitor your screen time and everything. They say that 61% of the general population report watching pornography. Now, that's reported. I'm sure that percentage is higher. 78% of men across the U.S. watch pornography. Actually, in recent years, I think since around COVID, it's shown that sex outside of marriage among teens and college-age people, young adults, they actually have stopped having so much intercourse outside of marriage, which is interesting, but the pornography rate has increased. And so a lot of people are going to this instead of just fornication outside of marriage. 44% of women watch pornography. This number is rising by the year, I believe. It's no longer just really a male problem. Women have the same access to all of these things, and there's a whole lot of junk on the internet, and so it's no longer. It really doesn't need to be associated just with men, although men are still in the majority here, unfortunately. But women also engage in this too, and oftentimes for women who deal with this, it's often probably even more challenging to get off of because society has framed this as a male thing. And so if you're a woman who deals with this and struggles with this, I'm not here to shame you, I'm just acknowledging there is a challenge there to overcome too. Keep going here. Y'all, parents, please listen up. Grandparents, please listen up. 73% of our teens have consumed pornography. Please don't walk away from this. Don't sit there and justify and rationalize things and say, oh, my kid would never do that. Really? 73%. Don't play ignorant. Don't play the fool. This is serious. I'm so thankful at one point my mom actually made us turn all of our phones in at night downstairs so that I could sleep without a device in my room. And I know it's a challenging thing to navigate. I'm not telling you how to parent, but this is something you need to be aware of. It's hijacking our teens, and it's warping their brain, and by the time they get off into college and find that special someone, their marriage is already doomed for failure. What are we going to do to change and impact the next generation? According to Covenant Eyes, the age of 12 is the average age of exposure. That is unfortunate. There are plenty of case studies out there that detail people being exposed to pornography at 6 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, below 10. They haven't even hit double digits in their age yet. 54%, this is where we don't need to have any judgmental comments here. 54% of practicing Christians, we still live in a very real world, and we still live in a very fallen world, and we all have access to, most of us have access to all kinds of media and everything, and it's no wonder, because we've never experienced this before, and this is the first time in the existence of humanity that we've had all the world's information at our fingertips. We've had everybody just on a list with visual images everywhere all the time. It is new technology, and it's no wonder we struggle with it because we haven't learned how to we haven't figured this out yet. But 54% of practicing Christians, they didn't give any specifics with any denominations or anything, but they also said in the studies that they did, if porn finds itself in a marriage, couples are twice as likely to separate. They didn't give a reason for why it found itself in there, whether it's the most often the case is the stereotypical normal case you find is most of the time the husband has a hidden pornography addiction and so he keeps it going for a while, or he tries to quit on his own and his wife doesn't know, and then years into the marriage she finds out, and then all of a sudden, with years into that marriage, she starts to think and starts to realize, I can't even compete with all of those women that he's seen. And then trust is eroded, it's broken down. No longer can she trust him, and what should I believe now? There is a level of things, a marriage can start to crumble very quickly. I've not been married, but this is a true statistic.
Brad used to always say, she was a therapist, that the problem with porn is that it creates unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That your spouse, like you said, cannot live up to.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Think about those of you who have been married. Really, you don't have to be married to experience this, but the number of times that we, in our life, in different contexts, maybe even outside of the marriage bed, we find ourselves dealing with unrealistic expectations. You know, it just is this overwhelming thing where I can't live up to what people expect of me or what I think people expect of me. That's a burden in of itself, and that's frustrating, and it feels like you're being backed into a corner and you have weight being put on you. But can you imagine in the most intimate act that God ever allowed you to experience with that one person in the world, and now you can't even... Yep.
It also had a alarming, it has a tremendous effect on young men and women who have sex before marriage with other partners.
Yes.
So when they get married, if the one that married doesn't meet up with what they had earlier, wham, there goes the marriage.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that ruined many a marriage because of that.
And so I bring these up not to shame. I hope you know that, and I hope that's clear in my tone. But this is reality. This is the fallen world that we live in. Chuck Swindoll said this: "Lust is no respecter of persons, whether by savage assault or subtle suggestion. Its alluring siren voice can infiltrate the most intelligent mind and cause its victim to believe its lies and respond to its appeal. And beware, church, beware. It never gives up. It never runs out of ideas. Bolt your front door, and it'll rattle at the bedroom window. It'll crawl into the living room through the TV screen, or it'll wink at you or whistle at you out of a magazine." Now let me be clear what lust is not. It's not noticing someone's appearance, and it's not the natural interest in the opposite sex. Again, God created us, and in fact, you all, every one of us are here today because of sex. Right? You ever walk down the hallway and just think about that? Like, we all got here because of sex. It's funny to me, and I think about that every now and then, and sometimes I'm grossed out, and sometimes it's like, wow, this is interesting. But lust is not noticing someone's appearance. Oh, she looks good, or man, he looks handsome, or whatever. It's not that, and it's not having a healthy level of interest in someone of the opposite gender. Not at all. And God is honored in that and is glorified in that, and that's how God wired us. At the same time, when we take it out of the fire pit, or when we take it out of the channel of the river, it becomes something different. So a few definitions of lust to give you. We are going to jump into Scripture, and I'm not going to have enough time to get through all of it. Jesus' statement in Matthew 5, many of us are aware of this. It's not enough just to say, well, I didn't sleep with her, or I didn't go to bed with them, or whatever. No, it's if you looked at someone with lustful intent, you've committed adultery of the heart. And it starts within the heart. And so whatever you start struggling with fantasizing or struggle with maybe lusting, it gets filtered through your heart and it comes out with your life. And so if you can stop it from entering your heart, you can probably stop it from happening in your life. John Maxwell said it this way. He's a very influential leader and figure in leadership, but he has a background in preaching. He said, "Lust is a thought that I entertain, that I cherish, or I hold on to, that if I did what I was thinking, it would clearly be sin." Now that's a good way to describe it. I appreciate that definition. One author said it this way. He said, "Lust is an uncontrollable craving to gratify your fleshly desires by seeking to satisfy a legitimate desire that God gave you, but it's in an illegitimate way." All right. Scripture says some things about it. Jesus clearly says this. We've touched on this. Excuse me. "You shall not commit adultery, but I say to you," the act of adultery, "but I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent," not admiring, but adoring and fantasizing, and it's like tongues hanging out. Yeah, okay, we need to change something. Anyone who looks at someone with lustful intent has already committed adultery in the heart. And you can say, well, I didn't sleep with them, or I didn't even touch them. But no, to God, you've ruminated on something, and you've dwelled on it, and it has an impact and a sway on you that still matters to God. John says this, 1 John 2, 15 through 17, "Don't love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that's in the world, the desires, you could also translate that word desires as lust. The lust of the flesh and lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world's passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. You know, these are ironically the three areas that Adam and Eve were tempted in and they fell to, they succumbed to, they were seduced by. And these are the three areas that Jesus was tempted and tested by, and he overcame on our behalf. But you know, if we're so filled with a love for the world, then yeah, we're going to continue to fall to the lust of the flesh. If you're so filled with garbage of the world, yeah, you are going to walk in garbage. But if we continue to empty ourselves and fill ourselves with the Holy Spirit of God and His goodness and His gospel, then man, we'll put those things to death and we'll be filled with something better. Yeah, I think about how many of you have been to Silver Dollar City? Some of us would call it Steal Your Dollar City. You go there and everything, and you can ride all these roller coasters. You can get all these different goodies and things, and I appreciate going there every time that I have with school. You go there though, and there's different rides offered. You can get on powder keg. You can get on all these just really, really interesting, unique roller coasters. You even get on a log ride that comes in right in the water. You get all these different rides, and you know, you get on there and you ride them, and within a couple minutes it's over. You've gotten a thrill, your adrenaline's gotten high and everything, and it's like, oh my gosh, I almost died again, right? But then I equate that in an illustration. I illustrate that as that's the thrill of the world of sex when it's not in its proper place. It's like getting on a roller coaster, a big thrill, endorphins going everywhere, dopamine's being released, and it's just this thrill of an experience, but it's over in a couple of minutes, and it's like, I've got to go again to actually find satisfaction. And you end up not finding satisfaction. But then there is this ride that goes through Silver Dollar City. It's that little trolley that everyone has to stop for at some point. It interrupts your day, and it's just like, man, do I want to really get on that trolley or not? Because if you get on it, it's almost like you're not getting off. But think about that trolley that continuously goes. It doesn't often stop. It will stop to let people on, for sure, but it keeps going and it meanders around, and it's not the biggest tourist attraction. You don't go to Silver Dollar City just to ride the trolley, right? It's not the main advertisement, but man, it's consistent, it's safe, it's in its proper place, and there's something healthy about it. And I would say the trolley is more of what God's will is for us if we're going to equate the two. Now, if you go to Silver Dollar City, ride the roller coasters. I'm not saying don't do that. But just be aware. Paul says this, if you've been raised with Christ, if your story has been put into Jesus' story, seek the things that are above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Because you have come up out of those waters and been raised with Christ, now seek the things that are above. And in our life, we're called to still put things to death. There are things that we said we died to back here in the baptistry, and yet we still need to practically live out in our life. And so Paul says, continue to put these things to death, what's earthly in you. Now notice the first four things here: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, and evil desire. Those can encompass all, it's like the umbrella term of sexual morality, or umbrella term of porneia in the Greek. Put it to death. Don't even flirt with it. Flee from it, right? Now I want us to turn to 2 Samuel 11. If you would, get those pages turned into 2 Samuel 11. Looking at just how significant it is. Many of us would say that David was a man after God's own heart. That is what Scripture says, absolutely. We're going to clarify that here in a second. But a man of God can even, a man after God's own heart, a man who's dedicated his life and put his life on track to be with God and has written so many psalms and plays instrumental music in the temple and all that stuff and sings and writes music for God and does all of these things and goes out and kills Goliath and all that, can still fall to this. 2 Samuel 11, join me in reading. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem. It happened one late afternoon when David arose from his couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house, that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful. And David sent and inquired about the woman. And one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" So David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. Now she had been purifying herself from her uncleanness. And then she returned to her house, and the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, "I'm pregnant." And so David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab was doing and how the people were doing and how the war was going. David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." And Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. But Uriah didn't go and sleep with his wife. He slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and they did not go down to his house. When they told David, Uriah didn't go down to the house, David said to Uriah, "Why have you not gone? Have you not come home from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house?" And Uriah said to David, "The ark in Israel and Judah dwell in booths, and my lord Joab, the servants of my lord, are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? They can't do that. Why should I? And as you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing." And David said to Uriah, "Well, remain here today also, and tomorrow I'll send you back." And so Uriah remained in Jerusalem. Now, skip down to verse 14. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter it wrote, "Set Uriah on the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him that he may be struck down and die." And as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where they knew they were valiant men. And the men of the city came out and fought with Joab. Some of the servants of David among the people fell. Uriah the Hittite also died. Joab sent and told David all the news about the fighting. We can skip down to verse 22. So the messenger went and came and told David all that Joab had went to tell. The messenger said to David, "The men gained an advantage over us and came out against us in the field, but we have driven back the entrance of the gate," and reported everything about Uriah dying. Verse 26, when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, when Bathsheba heard that Uriah was dead, she lamented over her husband. And when the mourning was over, mourning, not the morning time, but mourning, grieving, was over, David sent and brought her to his house. And she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. For sake of time, we're not going to read 2 Samuel 12, but just look at this spiraling that David does. David remained in Jerusalem. He was isolated. You know, all the people, valiant people, and the kings went off to battle, but David remained in Jerusalem. He remains back. He isolates himself. He becomes probably a little bored because everyone else is fighting and all that stuff. And then in his boredom, in his isolation, he sees a beautiful woman bathing on the rooftop for some reason, and he gets triggered. Whoa, she's good looking. You know, maybe he whistles at her or something. I don't know. He disregarded her contextually. He didn't see her as someone else's wife or daughter or maybe even future mother. He saw her possibly as an object, a piece of property, a toy, or a piece of meat. Regarded her contextually or disregarded her. So he sent for her. He misused his power. If the king sent for you and you didn't do it, you could be beheaded. You could be executed and all that. And so she doesn't really have a choice in the say, especially in that time frame. So he misuses his power. And then, you know, they do the deed. And then, well, they find out she's gotten pregnant. So he tries to cover it up and deceive. He tries to get Uriah to sleep with Bathsheba, but Uriah is noble enough to say, "I'm not even going to do that because my mighty men are still in battle and still in the field. I'm not going to do that." He tries to cover it up. Now he has Uriah killed. David has Uriah's blood on his hands. Murder. And then in 2 Samuel 12, we know that David is confronted by Nathan the prophet. Nathan comes to God's displeased with all of this, very displeased. And then Nathan the prophet comes to David and tells him a little parable or whatever. And David says, "Oh, that man that stole the other lamb, yeah, he deserves death." And Nathan looks at him and says, "David, you are that man." To which David then is taken back and says, "Yes, I am." And he confesses his sin to the Lord. And we understand the consequences here. We understand that David lost the child Bathsheba lost a child because of it. All of this happened because he remained back, isolated, bored, and he acted on his sexual desires outside of the container that God called us to. He confessed his sin, but he also faced some consequences. I want to point out that there is someone greater than David. Actually, let's go back for a second, as much as you probably don't want to. Some of you say, how can someone who is a Christian struggle with sexual purity or sexual impurity? Well, I would ask you, how does a man after God's own heart do this? Maybe you might be thinking of Jonah. How does God's own prophet go on the run when God's told him this? God's people are simply flawed, deeply flawed too. Now let's be clear, David was a man after God's own heart. I'm pretty sure, though, that doesn't mean that David was specifically set aside in a certain way at his birth, or he was given a specific chromosome that really made him something special in God's sight. That's not what that means. As if he was just born with a silver spoon in his mouth. That's not what that means. The title refers actually to how David actually actively sought after the Lord. He sought to please the Lord from the time he was young throughout the course of his life. So let's not put David in a category that's impossible to rise to or to enter into. David's not in this impossible category of, well, he's a man after God's own heart. I guess he's the standard and I'll never live up to it. That's not the case. If you're seeking the Lord and you're seeking to honor him with every area of your life, then you also are a man or a woman after God's own heart. That title can be applied to you as well. And yet, even if you are a man or a woman after God's own heart, you also are not without your flaws either. We're all deeply flawed. But there is someone greater than David that has come. The Hebrew writer says it this way: since then we have such a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. We do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect was tempted as we are, even sexual temptation, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. As much of a struggle as this is in our modern world today, we need to commit this to memory. We need to embody this message, that if you are struggling with this, or if this has been a problem in your life before, and this is a weakness for many of us, Jesus has walked this earth, and he's gone before you and I, and he's faced all the temptations that we could ever face, and he's overcome them. He said no to every temptation, and he died a perfect death on a cross for you and for me. So then with that confidence in Jesus, not necessarily in the church that we attend, not necessarily in the fact that we're sitting in the pews today, but with the confidence in the blood of Jesus that washes us clean, with that confidence, let's draw near to the throne of grace that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. We don't have someone who's unable to sympathize with us. We have someone who is able to sympathize with us in every form and facet. Beloved, we need to hear this a whole lot more often. Jesus said this in John chapter 10. He says, the thief, the devil, the ways of this world comes only to steal and to kill and to destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd willingly lays down his life for the sheep. And just as Jesus died to sin, we also need to die to the lusts and the appetites of the flesh. But this gospel, this forgiveness, this pardon, this cleansing within, it's open, it's still real, it's still relevant, and it's still available for you and for me. It's here. Will you receive it? Will you take it? Will you embody it? And so remember, we're not just trying to stop a behavior. We're also going to try to replace it with something godly too, especially with this struggle that many of us deal with. We need to be willing to empty ourselves of it and really get away from it and empty ourselves so that we can be filled with something better. So some steps, I just have 4. Consider assessing your needs. You know, most of the time we do things because we have a deep inner desire that we're trying to meet. You know, if you feel empty, then you're probably going to try to fill yourself with something. Are you trying to fill an emptiness in your life with something less than God intended? What do you feel like you need? What do you feel like you need that sexual lust will fulfill? Because honestly, sexual lust will give momentary pleasure, but it's not going to satisfy you long term. It's like getting on the roller coaster, and it's over in a few seconds, but getting on the trolley lasts forever. It's kind of like eating a whole bag of Charlie gummy worms. Anyone like Charlie gummy worms in here? I don't want to ruin that for you, but I love Charlie gummy worms. Man, they taste good. But when you eat a whole giant $8 bag of them, man, you get sick. They won't sustain you. You'll probably throw it up too. It'll be a nasty situation. Step 2. So assess your needs. What am I really feeling underneath? What am I really dealing with? What's the void in my life? And then be aware of the consequences. David was a man after God's own heart, yet he still had to face the consequences of his lust. He lost a child conceived with Bathsheba, and she had to grieve and mourn the loss of a child because David got out of his proper place, got out of his channel. He lost a great man in Uriah. In fact, he is guilty of murdering Uriah, having Uriah killed. Uriah lost his life. Bathsheba lost a husband. Just because God loves us and will take us back and forgive us does not mean that we won't still have consequences to iron out for our decisions. And that is something that we sometimes mistake and get misconstrued, is that just because we've received grace, as important and as eternally important as that is, that doesn't mean we're not still without consequences in a real world for the decisions that we've made. So consider the consequences of staying trapped in sexual lust. Losing your life, your credibility, maybe your marriage, maybe even your kids. Consider the consequences of what's at stake here. Step 3 would be avoid temptation at all cost. Another way you might say it is don't feed your lust, because if you feed it, it will grow and it will overtake you. Get rid of the things and situations that tempt you. You could lock up your phone with devices and your devices with accountability screen software like Covenant Eyes. They're really good. There's other things too. You can delete social media if that's a problem for you. Join a small group of people who are also dealing with this, or people you can call whenever you are triggered. And as important as this is, we could also filter what we watch on TV, maybe what you read in a book, the romance novels. Paul says in 2 Timothy 2:22, he says, "Flee also youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord's name out of a pure heart." Don't flirt with temptation, flee and run towards this instead. There's a lot of times that we're told, stand your ground, do this, but with sexual temptation, far often than not, we forget a lot of times that we're told to flee it. Don't even face it, just run away. Just like Joseph, even if you run away without your shirt or your robe or whatever he had on. Peter says in 1 Peter 2:11, "Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of your flesh, which wage war against your soul." When you stay and face it, you're actually already waging war with your soul, and so flee temptation instead of flirting with it. The 4th one is accept godly counsel. Find an accountability partner of the same gender. This doesn't really work if you cross genders. If you can find the courage to express your struggles to somebody else, we are much more likely to avoid those tempting places and those tempting situations, and we're going to heed the challenges that we have put forth. There are plenty of people, and there are plenty of people here, and there's plenty of resources available for you online. Amongst all of the junk on the internet, amongst all the pornography on the internet, there's also plenty of resources available to help you and to help me battle for purity in an impure world. But all I can say is this: please, before it's too late, remember that statistic, parents. 73% of teens across the United States either have consumed porn or are. Please lock those devices up. Do something. Take action. Please get help before it's too late, before your marriage crumbles, before your family falls apart, before your children resent you. Before it's too late, please get help if you so need it. We are creatures, unfortunately, of habit, for better or for worse. Well, let's honor the Lord this week by breaking the habit of lust, emptying ourselves of it, fleeing it, and facing the pain that we may need to. So this has been Creatures of Habit. I don't really have that much time left, so you are dismissed. Thank you for being here.